Secretary General for United Nations and Madam I
commit the UNAOC to continuing to work with you and advocating for these recommendations to be implemented. Now, I will turn the floor over to the Secretary General, who has very kindly decided to join us today to share with you where he is leading the UN when it comes to the youth agenda.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. Alem Marti Natalegawa, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Indonesia, Your Excellency, Mr. Nasir Abdulaziz Al-Nasser, United Nations High Representative for the Alliance of Civilizations, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with the youth leaders who have been discussing your own future for one day. I'm sorry that to be the guest speaker at the only closing ceremony, but it is always important for me to know at least what you have been discussing and what your concerns and your aspirations are for the future, so that the United Nations can mobilize necessary resources as well as the will of the international community. I'm inspired by all this presence of young people from all over the world, at least the 40 countries. And I really thank you for your energy and your dedication to shape the future of this world. You are proving the power of the theme of the Alliance of Civilization, that is diversity, unity in diversity. We cannot find any appropriate place than in Indonesia. It is quite befitting and appropriate that we are meeting in Indonesia at this time of a very important time. You are part of the generation, the largest generation of youth in history. You have unprecedented power to network. You are correcting the issues that matter in our world today. Injustice, discrimination, human rights abuses, and our collective responsibility to end the discourse of hate and foster human solidarity. The United Nations is doing everything possible to encourage global mobilization of youth. We know that we cannot succeed in our ambitious goal to build a peaceful, sustainable future without young leaders. Earlier this month, we marked International Youth Day. That was August 12th. I had met a young woman who came from Mozambique. When I visited last year in Mozambique, I was meeting the high school students in a small village school. Suddenly, a young girl asked me a question. Secretary General, as a young woman, young student, can a woman become the Secretary General of the United Nations? That was quite an ambitious question. Then I told her that instead of saying something, I really wanted to show by action. Then I invited her. Look, I'm going to appoint as one-day honorary Secretary General of the United Nations. Why don't you come to the United Nations? And then she came on August 12th. That was International Youth Day. And I introduced the member states of the United Nations. Her name is Raquelina Langa. She's just a 16-year-old girl, and I told her that you learn all the things which we are doing in the United Nations and be prepared to become the Secretary General. And I told her that it is only natural that after 7 decades of the history of the United Nations, one day it will be quite natural that a woman can lead this organization. That was my message, and she was well applauded by many delegations. This year again, I felt just one youth day, August 12th, is not enough. So I stretched to a week. So this year we celebrated 1 week for youth. As a part of my commitment, I went to China, Nanjing, where I participated in 2nd Youth Olympic Games. I met a lot of young people there. Then I came back to the United Nations, and I met Malala Yousafzai. I know that you know her. She is a Pakistani girl who was almost killed by Taliban because she wanted to learn, she wanted to go to school. The Taliban, they hated any girls and women or to go to school. So she was almost killed. Only with the United Nations help and international help, she was survived, and she's now working as a global champion of girls for education. Isn't it excellent? Isn't it nice for her and other girls really raising their voices for education? In fact, she came with all backpack and textbook because she had to prepare for her homework. And it was quite meaningful time. She addressed the member state of the United Nations. What she said really impressed us. One of the participants asked the question to Malala Yousafzai, is there anything for a person like a young girl or like leaders of the world or young girls like her do anything for the world, to make the world better? She said that anybody can make a difference. Even you or he or she can make a difference. I often say that you may think you are just one of the students or one of the young persons who still do not have any positions. You are not having any social or official positions at this time. So I'm just a weak or small, poor people. But even each and everyone can make a huge difference at this time. Normally, it's not always the big, high persons who make the history of the world. You must have heard about this young, jobless Tunisian man, just 3 years ago. He was a jobless street vendor. He sacrificed himself because he was so frustrated by what the Tunisian government was doing without listening to the people's voice. And then he committed suicide by burning himself, and that became the origin and beginning of the Arab Spring. So anybody can make a huge difference. Anybody can make a difference in the world history. So please know that you are part of this history. You are part of this world. So you should always have ambition that you can make a change. We need all of you. I'm working to ensure that the young people are heard and represented at the United Nations and everywhere in our world. Some people say that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, but you have already taken your leadership's role of today. Only difference is that I'm taking my position at this time today, but tomorrow I'll be leaving it, all this responsibility to all of you. For that, for the first time in the United Nations, I appointed youth envoy of the Secretary General. Normally, special envoys, they are well-established persons, former presidents or prime minister, ministers or scholars. But he is just the third 29-year-old Jordanian man who is now leading and trying to connect youth organizations, and he's reaching out to all the young people. In fact, the half of our population, global population, that means 3.5 billion people, is under the age of 25. That means this world is very young. That means this world belongs to all of you. So you should be prepared to take responsibility today and tomorrow. We are now working very hard. The international leaders are working very hard to provide decent jobs, promote the human dignity, and clean environment. Young people want us to focus on what matters for their own future. That is what I'm doing now. We hear these concerns. We are resolved to respond. The United Nations is engaged in a global campaign to fight poverty by reaching the Millennium Development Goals. I know that we will not attain all the goals of Millennium Development Goals by the end of next year. That is why we are trying to shape the future development agenda, starting from 2016, aiming, targeting by 2030. By that time, I hope that we'll be able to eradicate abject poverty, that there should be nobody who are living with just less than $1 a day. I'm sure that we can do it, because by next year, we will be able to cut by half the number of people living in extreme poverty. In fact, we have already done it, but because of continuing economic crisis and continuing a crisis all around the world, this number has been increased, in fact. But by 2030, we can do it. And by next year, we will have to have a global legal document on climate change. The Bali has set a very important milestone here in 2007. I was here together with the Minister Marty and with under the leadership of President Yudhoyono. We adopted a Bali roadmap, which has been built upon during the last 7 years. And by the time we go to Paris next year, I am confident that we will be able to have, for the first time in the history, a global legal document on climate change. That is our firm resolve. Ladies and gentlemen, the United Nations is also reinforcing our partnership with the youth organizations for peace building. And we are systematically involving more young people in promoting reconciliation. I look forward to seeing the recommendations that you will present to the Alliance of Civilization Forum. We need your energy, your ideas, and your engagement in Bali and beyond. In a few days, I'm going to visit New Zealand. I have a full official program there. But let me just introduce one small thing, which can be a big one. longer than 50 years ago, I had an opportunity of participating in youth meeting like this. You're coming from 40 countries. You're meeting a lot of different friends from different countries. I was one of many young students who were visiting the United States at that time. I have come to know two girls from New Zealand at that time. Then we've been communicating. At that time, the communication depended only on letters, which took maybe 2 to 3 weeks to reach one place and coming back. We've been corresponding for quite a long time. After I became a Secretary General, I thought that I should have some reunion of a 50th anniversary. At that time, about 100 students gathered at the time, like this way. I sent out invitation. I first tried to reach out to all people, but I was not able to reach all the people. And in any way, 70% I was able to identify. And I invited all of them to Washington, D.C. and New York, United Nations. We got old, you know. We reached a certain age. You may remember, if you are good in mathematics, we met around the age of 18, 17, then after 50 years, then we became, we had all gray hairs and all this. But they were like feeling like really boys and girls 50 years ago. And we've been corresponding. I'm going to meet them again, 2 New Zealand friends, in just a few days. I'm excited to meet them. My message to you is that connecting the relationship and partnering a relationship is very important. This can be done among your friends. This can be done among groups. The partnership is now very important at this time. United Nations takes a partnership very seriously. Partnership among governments, business communities, and academics, and civil societies, and NGOs. Only with a stronger partnership, we can address all the challenges which we have now. Climate change cannot be done alone by the governments. We need a strong support from business communities, academic, and also civil societies. So please know that you are one of the very important actors. So when these actors' solidarity are realized, then we can have a huge energy and huge power and strength. Only through this, we can make this world better for all. Therefore, please have a global vision, be a global citizen, and work for global peace and harmony and development. And I really count on your continuing leadership and commitment and ambition. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for engaging with us. I think we are personally touched. One thing is to read the story of the Pakistani girl or look at the videos on YouTube, and certainly a totally different thing is to hear this same story from the Secretary General of the United Nations. I would say that you flew us with your stories in Africa first, in Pakistan then, and in Tunisia. May I allow us to land us in India. Gandhi said that when a man or a woman shares his or her wisdom, words will generate other words. And in this case, I would say stories generate other stories. Today, your words as Secretary General, as well as your presence among us, prompted some youth to ask some questions.